Howdy everyone, Poacher here with an Age of Magic video. In this video we are going to do an analysis on the two new champions coming to Age of Magic. As there is no footage currently of these champions at max level and how they perform in battle, we are going to judge them by how they look on paper, and ways in which you could use these characters in combat. The first character being released is Pigsy. Now Pigsy is a melee damager. He is the first melee damager we have got in a long time, and it is really refreshing to see. One day, his laziness or love of women or hubris will overcome him, but for now he enjoys all those vices to the full. So straight up we can tell that Gatekeeper has a bit of competition, because now that this guy's on the scene, we know who is the most attractive character in the game. His first ability, or his basic ability, is Rake Strike. Basic attack with a 50% chance to cause the target to bleed for 2 turns. Basic damage 304. Chance of causing bleed is 50%, damage over time 300, effect duration 2. Now without being able to level up these characters, it's going to be difficult to get a reading on how much damage increase they get. However, we are able to look at the skill level 7 and see what does increase. So as you can see here, nothing but the damage and the damage over time increases. There's no increase to the effect duration or the chance of causing bleed. Those stay the same. However, for a basic attack, a 50% chance of inflicting a bleed for 2 turns is still pretty good. Moving on to his first special, this is where things spice up. Piglet Squeal. Damages all enemies and removes their ability to counter-attack. Increases chance of dealing critical attacks to enemies by 20% and becomes able to attack hidden enemies for 2 turns. Skill being at level 1, ability cooldown is 5, basic damage 176, bonus to critical hit chance 20, effect duration 2. When we scale it up to level 7, the ability cooldown will change from 5 to 3. You will be able to apply a mark with this ability. You will apply the boss mark to all enemies. Triggering the boss mark, critical damage from the next boss attack increases to 30%. The target will also take 20% more damage from critical hit for 2 turns. So you're starting to get a little theme about how these two characters are going to work. I don't want to spoil too much about Wukong until we get to him, but critical hits do play a massive role with these characters, and I feel like it will eventually mean a lot to the Beastman faction. So the basic damage increases as well. And again, bonus to critical hit chance. So yeah, like I said, critical hit chance, big thing with these guys. His next ability, Jacuzzi Dipper. The target cannot dodge this powerful attack. The target's dodge has a 30% chance of being 0 for 2 turns. At level 1, ability cooldown is 6, basic damage 304, chance to reduce dodge 30, effect duration 2. At max level, level 7, the ability cooldown is reduced by 1, so 6 to 5, basic damage increases, chance to reduce dodge increases a lot, effect duration increases by 1 as well, so effectively being up for 3 turns, down for 3 turns. So I think a lot of people are going to be happy with this ability simply because the enemy can't dodge, and it is reducing their chance to dodge by a lot. Pigsy's last ability, his passive Boar Fortitude, will survive the first deadly attack of the battle, keeping 1 HP. At the start of every turn has a 50% chance to remove 1 debuff, and with a 30% chance of removing 1 debuff from other beastmen, and half that chance of removing a debuff from allies from other factions. At level 1 has a 50% chance to remove the debuff, number of debuffs removed 1, chance to remove debuff 30% from allies. Ramping it up to skill level 7, however, you have chance to remove debuffs 50% plus 30%, so 80%. Number of debuffs removed, you can remove up to 3. Chance to remove debuff from allies, 60%. So yeah, pretty solid passive, able to keep himself from dying while clearing your side of the field of debuffs. That's always good. There are a lot of debuffs in this game. If you can clear them, you will be doing yourself a favor. So overall, pretty good character, melee damager, but I'd even throw in a bit of a support unit there with clearing those debuffs, increasing crit chance, just overall, really good, solid unit. Next up, we have Sun Wukong. He is the boss of the Beastmen, and let me tell you, he is probably the first boss or obtainable boss in the game that is worthy of this title. He is a monster. This guy is the best looking bloke on the block, and he has asked you out on a date. He rocks up to your house with flowers, he opens the door for you, he takes you out to a nice romantic dinner and a walk along the riverfront. You find yourself both lying on a lush bit of grass looking at the stars above, telling each other your dreams and hopes and fears and really getting that connection going. And then all of a sudden the sun's rising and you realize how early it is, and you both walk back to the car. He drives you home, respecting your boundaries, walks you up to your front door, kisses you on the forehead, and never calls you again. That is the destruction that this absolute monster is going to leave on the battlefield. His basic attack is Staff Strike. Strikes an enemy with a staff, critical hits, ignore the target's armor. Pretty basic, good critical strike damage if you can land it. Nothing increases but the basic damage if you level this up to level 7. However, you'll notice it triggers the boss class mark. Mix this with Pigsy, who applies the boss class mark, and then you could be walloping out a big portion of damage. So yeah, pretty straightforward basic attack, but then we peel back his layers a tiny bit and discover this monstrous move, Monkey Rage. And what you will notice straight off the bat is this triggers the boss class mark. And what you can remember also is that Pigsy applies the boss class mark, which when triggered increases the percentage damage of a critical hit. So now remember that when reading this ability, Sun Wukong strikes an enemy for 2 turns, allies deal 10% more damage if they use a physical melee attack, and Sun Wukong's speed increases by 20%. He is also guaranteed to deal critical hits to enemies, which cannot be dodged or blocked. For 2 turns, Sun Wukong will counterattack all attacks. And this is only the ability at level 1. Its ability cooldown is 6, its basic damage is 529, the increase percentage of damage is 10%, the increase of own speed is 20%, effect duration 2. Remember, when you are mixing this with Pigsy's ability, he is getting a 30% increased damage to that guaranteed critical strike that cannot be dodged or blocked. This thing is going to smack you in the face. It's going to be like a metal bat is hitting you and you cannot dodge it. Ramp this skill up to level 7, however, and the ability cooldown reduces by 1, the basic damage increases, the increased percent of damage to allies increases by 10%, his speed increases by another 10% to 30%, the effect duration remains the same. His second special ability, Jenga Bang, deal more damage to all enemies, has a 30% chance to slow any of the enemies by 15% for 2 turns, and a 60% chance to remove all armor and magic resist buffs. So from what I understand, this is an AoE ability that triggers the boss class mark. So again, imagine using that against all enemies that have that mark on them. At level 1, the ability cooldown is 8, basic damage is 361, the decrease to speed is 15%, chance to reduce speed 30%, chance to remove positive effects from an enemy 60%. Smash this ability up to 7 and its cooldown reduces by 1, its damage increases, its decrease of speed is increased by 10% to 25%, chance of reducing speed is increased to 60%, chance to remove positive effects from an enemy is 80%. So I'm very interested to see how much damage this ability can do, especially when all the enemies have that boss class mark on them. So what possible way could you top this champion off? Of course, by giving him a crazy passive, Monkey King. Sun Wukong cannot be forced to miss a turn or have his abilities blocked. All beastmen get 10% HP and allies from other factions get half as much. Every time an ally makes a critical hit, again, that critical hit aspect to this, Sun Wukong's damage increases by 2% until the end of the battle, but cannot go higher than 100%. Current level increases hit points 10%, increases damage 2%. And when that reaches level 7, increase to hit points is 20%, increase of damage is 4%. Every time an ally lands a crit, you get a 4% damage increase. This character is insanely good, but I think he is going to be even better when he has that synergy with Pigsy. I think these two characters are going to be ones that need to be on the same team. They need to be working together, and their combination is just going to be very devastating. You see, dodge has been an issue in this game for a long time, and these two guys do not give a shit about dodge. They're going to come at you, they're going to hit their attacks, there's no avoiding them, and you're not going to be able to slow them down because they can get rid of those debuffs and they can get rid of your buffs. So watch out for them. I think this is a new era, and I think it's going to be pushing towards the Beastman for a long time. But who knows? I could be completely wrong. It's happened in the past. I'm sure it'll happen again in the future. These guys could be completely shit. We won't know until they come out. But I think I've covered everything. As usual, guys and ladies, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below. I'll answer it to the best of my ability. And wherever you are in the world, until next time, take care of yourself.